Tigadan 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 pam pam tigadan 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 pam pam tigadan 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 pam pam tigadan.
DK Panda, Professor and Distinguished Scholar at OSU. You'll be presenting HPC and AI designing high-performance scalable middleware for HPC and AI exascale systems and clouds. DK, welcome.
Yes, can you see my screen now?
I can. Perfect.
So thanks, everybody. Inviting me to give the talk here. I see a lot of familiar names and faces in the attendees list. We are virtual. I am wishing the Lugano Congress Center. Hopefully next year we'll be able to meet there in person. So today I'll try to share some of the things what we have been doing for the last 20 years. The focus is here on the designing high performance scalable middleware for both HPC and AI exascale systems and clouds. So as most of you know, we are in a very exciting phase. If you take a look at how the field is evolving, in 2017, the field crossed like 100 petaflops. Currently now the Fugaku is 442 petaflops. And very soon we'll be having the exaflop. At least end of this year, or if not, the next of early next year, will be actually crossing the exaflop. So there is a lot of excitement in the field. Now, if you take a look at inside what is happening, not only like the HPC, but also the HPC, big data and deep learning, machine learning, all of them are now being combined. This is what you also heard about HPC AI machines. So people want to use the computing power and use any of these different aspects in a combined workflow. It might be there is an application, I have a lot of data, I'm trying to operate on those data. Then might be I'm trying to do some machine learning from that data, I'll be doing some high performance computing. So in that context, we need some kind of a convergence, like an underlying hardware and underlying software, which will allow the users to have a very flexible computing environment. So that's what actually I'll try to show how we are exactly trying to achieve that. And at the same time, all of us know, like the cloud computing is also making a big stride. So can the similar kind of software or middleware also be used for the cloud? So in this context, I'll try to explain some of the things what we have been doing, at least the three main projects, the MRAPIDS project, the high performance deep learning project, and high performance big data project. These are the three projects we have been doing in my group for many years. And I'll try to share some of the results from these projects, and also show that how some of these solutions are actually being deployed in the public cloud. I'll give examples of AWS, Azure, and I'll end it with some of the commercial support and value-added products being done. So let me briefly introduce the MRAPIDS project. Many of you might be already familiar with this. This is a project which is continuing in my group for 20 years. This project started almost the day one of InfiniBand when it was introduced in October 2000. We were ready. Prior to that, we were working on the older generation internets like Mirinet, Quadrix. But when InfiniBand came in, we jumped into that. And we had the very fast open source version of the MPI being demonstrated at Supercomputing 2002, almost 19 years back. And then over the years, we have expanded not only to InfiniBand, started with InfiniBand, but expanded to Omnipath, Ivor, Rocky, and recently also the AWS EF adapter. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And also for multiple platforms like x86, OpenPower, ARM, we had support for Geon5, and now we have support for GPUs, both NVIDIA and AMD. And currently these libraries are being used by more than 3,000 organizations in 89 countries. Just from our website, we have crossed 1.35 million downloads. And we are also, the libraries are available in the software stacks of many vendors, Red Hat, SUSE, OpenHPC, and SPAC. And they are empowering a lot of top 500 clusters over the years. So this is our architecture of the MHAPIS2 software family. So at the top level, as I indicated, we have MPI interface. In addition to that, we also have a PGAS interface. We can also do hybrid MPI plus X. And through that, actually, we are able to not only enable MPI, we are also enable now deep learning, machine learning, data science. So that's what actually I'll be talking later. So the end users don't have to come to the MPI layer. They can remain at their layer, but we are providing a converged software infrastructure because MPI runs on any platform. So you should be able to get the best performance. So that will be the theme of this talk. And then at the bottom, you can see like these are the support for all different networking technologies, different transport protocols, modern features, as well as on the platforms. And this is where in the middle, we have the high performance and scalable communication runtime. So in my group, not only we carry out fundamental research, we come up with designs, we publish these, and then we have now the capabilities to take these designs and then really put it into our public version of the libraries in 3 to 6 months. And we follow a very in-depth QA procedure so that we go through all the definite testing. We have almost 200 servers in my lab continuously running Q&A. So when we make the release, it's just like any other production quality software stack. So today I'll be just talking some of these versions. So this is a basic MHAPIS2 version. Then we have an advanced version. I'll talk some of the features. These are some advanced features with MHAPIS2X. And then we have a very optimized version for GPU, both for NVIDIA as well as AMD. This is called MHAPIS2 GDR. So I'll be mostly talking about these three libraries in today's talk. And of course, we have some of the other tools and benchmarking tools with this library also. So if you take a look at the MPI library, if some of you are familiar, I mean, MPI standard has been evolving. I mean, starting from MPI 1 to MPI 4 will be introduced very soon. And people are already started talking about MPI 5. So within the MPI standard, if you take a look, like it has almost like 400 different APIs. So we take a very holistic approach in designing these libraries. That means we are trying to provide the best performance and scalability for all those APIs. So I'll try to show some of the results, what we have. In this talk, I'll not be able to give you all the complete set of results, but some of the results, so that will provide you an insight. So let's start with the very simple, like a startup. Anytime if you want to launch an MPI job, the first thing you need to do startup is just like starting a car. You might have a very high-priced car, but if it doesn't start, then it is of no value. So over the years, as you can see, as the system sizes are increasing, the startup itself is becoming a bottleneck. Okay, and we have been working on many advanced designs to make it faster, and also trying to consume less and less memory, because in the beginning you need to do some like a connection setup, how we can minimize those amount of memory. So here is some numbers taken on the TAC Frontera system, which is at the Texas Advanced Computing System. So here you can see we are comparing our MHAPIS2 version with Intel MPI. So here if you see almost like 230,000 processes, we are able to, the MPI init, which is the very first step you do in any MPI job, it just takes 31 seconds on 4,000 nodes. Okay, and this is like a fully subscribed 4,000 nodes with 56 processes. Compared to the other library, we can give you, in fact, very significant benefits. So then over the years, a lot of things are happening with the in-network computing, especially from Mellanox, more and more features are being added to the network. One of the things which has been there for many years is the hardware multicast. So the hardware multicast here, if you take a look, you can actually, the multicast happens at the switch layer. So if I send a message, over the switch, it actually goes to all of the nodes. I can always also do through a software. If I want to do a broadcast, I can do like a binomial, k-nomial. There are a lot of algorithms available. But of course, the hardware is the best. And here we are trying to show some of the numbers. What you can see here, let's say you take a look at this slide here. So this is like a scaling with respect to number of nodes. So up to 1,000 nodes, you can see here, like I'm trying to send a small broadcast, like the MPI bcast is a 16-byte message. So as you can see, the software, as the system size increases, it becomes larger and larger. But here you can see almost you get a little bit of a flat, like in a 5 to, I think this is around like a 6 microsecond. You can actually cover the entire, all the 1,000 nodes. Okay? So we provide a lot of flexibility in our software stack. So this, of course, needs that your system administrator needs to enable the multicast. Some system administrators don't do that. So we have provided a lot of runtime so that you can actually configure our MapResto library appropriately on your system. So broadly, if you see across like a different message sizes, different number of nodes, you get almost like a 2x benefit for reasonably large system size. The other one is the SAR. I think you may hear more about that in the talk from Gilad tomorrow. So this is like the in-network computing. We have actually tightly integrated with the SAR. So here it is trying to show like this is one of the largest runs we have done. This is the full tax system, the Frontera, 7,000 nodes, 7,861 nodes. It's trying to do MPI all reduce. And TPN is one that is like a leader node. Typically in the MPI, you try to do a hierarchical one. So one leader node is trying to participate and do the all reduce. So here you can see, this is our software-based approach. We have done a lot of optimizations purely on the software side. But now if you see with the SAR, we are able to give you like almost 5x benefit. Same things you will see here, barrier, we are able to give 9x benefit. And here again, this is a reduce, we are able to give like a 6x benefit. So there are more details here. I'll be many slides. I provide the references here. We have presented this at the last year's Exascale MPI workshop. You can actually go and take a look at more results. So as the platforms are increasing, we are also trying to provide more and more support. So here it is like the support for the ARM. So the ARM systems, just like the Fugaku, that uses the TOFU network, but there is a system in Stony Brook, Ukami. So that actually utilizes the InfiniMap. So here I'm trying to show some numbers in the internode and intranode, comparing our designs with OpenMPI. Here, like an internode, we are very similar here, but intranode, we have some advanced designs in the MapResto-X. As you can see, we can reduce actually latency for large message sizes in a significant manner. We're also working, there are a lot of different kinds of collectives also are very important. I showed only the all reduce earlier. So these are some of the studies we have actually done with EPFL. So this is the example of the, sorry, just 1 minute. So here you can see, so this is it has run on 9,900 cores. This is the EPFL Bini application. So we have used their benchmark. And here you can see like there is a different neighbor selection, random or consecutive. So we are comparing on that system. This system is installed in Lugano Computing Center. So we are running on that system. And here you can see compared to HP MPI, is the MapResto-X, we can actually give you like almost 36% benefit when the neighbor selection is random. So these kind of optimizations will be available in the upcoming version of the MapResto-X. So these are on some of the CPU side. So let me go into also more on the GPU side. I think I have given this in many other the talks. We actually introduced something called a CUDA-aware MPI. Many of you must have heard of that. So the idea is that instead of if the GPU is trying to do the computation, instead of taking the data or the results from the GPU to the CPU and sending it to the network, can you utilize like advanced technology like GPU Direct, RDMA and all to send data directly from GPU to GPU? So this we introduced in the ISC 2011. And over the last 10 years, I think that concept has become very, very common. A lot of MPI libraries, even other big data libraries, deep learning libraries are utilizing those concepts. So here I am trying to show some numbers. If you take a look at this number, like a 1.85 microsecond. So this is like taking data from GPU of one node to the GPU of another node through InfiniBand. Okay, it is not intranode, it's internode. As you can see, InfiniBand is around like a 1 microsecond latency. In another 850 nanosecond, we are able to even send data from GPU to GPU. And that provides very good performance compared to, let's say, this is the no GPU direct RDMA. And we also use GDR copy here. That is another library from NVIDIA. So you can see latency, we significantly get like a benefits, almost 10x, bandwidth also 9x, and bidirectional bandwidth also 11x benefits we see. Now, the next step, these are very new results. What we are going to the next step. So let's say you are actually doing the computation in the GPU. Okay, let's say when you use the CUDA MPI, you can send the data. So now the question is, can I even do on-the-fly GPU compression? So that means, let's say I have large amount of data in the GPU. Before I send, can I also use the GPU kernels to do compression and send it out? Okay. So this paper will be presented in 2 weeks at IPDPS. It has been selected as a best paper finalist. So here, so after the computation, we have actually done on the fly. So there are different compression algorithms. There is a MPC optimized, GFP optimized. These are we have taken the public version of the compression like MPC and GFP. And then we have done more optimizations on those. And this is actually trying to show a weak scaling of an HPC application like AWP ODC is a earthquake seismic simulation. This is running on the Livermore Lab Larsen cluster with 300 nodes. So here up to 512 GPUs actually at the execution time for the AWP ODC. Here you can see we are able to give almost like a 18% boost and 35% boost in the GPU computing flops, and it per time step it actually reduces 15% to 26%. So the idea is that the GPU has a lot of resources, so we can actually try to do now on the fly. And then these are like we have these two versions, lossless and lossy, and this application especially can handle that very well. Both even in a lossy manner, we can actually try to provide the performance. Similar kind of things also we have done here in the data science. I'll introduce that a little bit later. DAST, which is a data science framework, we have linked that into also our MLAPIS to GDR with the MPI integration. And here again, we see almost like a 1.56x improvement we can give for the DAST level application performance, and the execution time we can actually reduce by 37%. So it means that we can also use on-the-fly GPU compression, and we are gradually trying to expand that into other applications. So more will be presented, as I said, in 2 weeks at the IPDPS conference. So these are some of the things with the NVIDIA GPUs. As you know, the AMD GPU is also upcoming. That will be part of the Exascale system, which are being planned at Oak Ridge National Lab, the Frontier system. So we already have integrated our MLAPIS to GDR in the last release. We already have support for AMD GPUs. So here we are comparing, these numbers have been taken on the Livermore. There is a system already being deployed. So this is with InfiniBand. So here we are comparing our MLAPIS to GDR with OpenMPI, the very latest one, 4.10, with the UCX 110. So here you can see these are like an intranode point-to-point latency. That means taking from AMD GPU to AMD GPU over InfiniBand. Okay, so just like the earlier I showed with NVIDIA GPU, so here we can do it a 1.73 microsecond GPU to GPU. Sorry, this is intranode, and this is internode. This is 3.5 microsecond. So it is not as good as the NVIDIA GPU with InfiniBand, but still we can get good numbers. And here we are trying to show some collective numbers. So this has been taken with 128 GPUs. So you can see like 16 nodes here, 8 GPUs per node. We are able to perform very well compared to the OpenMPI version. So then we are moving into the next phase. I think Gilad will be talking in his keynote talk tomorrow morning in more details. This is the SmartNICs or the DP, which is being proposed by Mellanox. So that's the Bluefield adapter. As you can see in the Bluefield adapters, now we have a set of ARM cores in the NIC itself. So the question is like, just if you think like an executive secretary approach, if we think of the processors are like executives, and then the ARM cores are like secretaries, can we take advantage of these ARM cores to accelerate MPI level functions? Okay, we are not talking about computational offload. We are trying to think of offloading communication steps itself. So here we have taken one such example, which is the non-blocking all-to-all. That is very common in a lot of applications, and that is also very time-consuming. And in the past, a lot of research have taken place with non-blocking all-to-all. Always the challenges have been who will make the progress. You can provide an additional thread, or you can provide an additional core, but in that case, you are taking the resources out of the computation. But now, with ARM cores being available in the Bluefield, we can actually utilize those things. So we have designed a non-blocking all-to-all, and we have done the evaluation to accelerate a P3DFFT application here. And as you can see, this is like the graphs, like this is the Bluefield adapter, the ConnectX-6. That is the baseline. And then based on, again, in this adapter, there's a Bluefield 2, there are 8 cores there. So the question is, how many of those cores we can try to use? So just like the PPN, process per node, we have introduced something called a WPN concept, worker per node. So either we can use 1 ARM core or 2 or 4. So you can see here at the application level, these are the 32 nodes with 16 PPN, and this side is 32 nodes with 32 PPN. So there's 1,000 process runs. Here you can see like we can reduce for different grid sizes, 30% or 25% benefit at an application level. And this is also the result will be presented at the ISC conference towards the end of the June. You'll see more detailed results there. So these are some of the MPI side, what we have done. So directly you can take advantage of the CPUs, GPUs, and advanced networking technologies like InfiniBand to accelerate your applications. Now let me go to the next one, which is becoming very important, is the high performance deep learning and high performance machine learning. So here the way I have done is like look at the think of that convergence principle I indicated earlier. Like let's say your end user, if you are an end user, you may try to do your training with TensorFlow or PyTorch or MXNet, any of these higher level software stack. So the question is, how do you get the performance and scalability? So what we have done is we have integrated that through Horobird or Torch distributed deep speeds. There are a lot of different, these versions are coming out, and linked it with our MVAP2 library. MVAP2 or MVAP2X for CPU training, MVAP2 GDR for the GPU training. So the end users don't have to know about MPI, but you should be able to get the very good performance. So we have a project here called High Performance Deep Learning, HIDL. If you visit that site, you can actually download this stack. There are very detailed instructions, and in very small number of steps, if you have already our MVAP2 libraries running, you should be able to actually now start running your TensorFlow, PyTorch, MXNet on that environment with very good performance. So that's what I'll try to show in the next set of slides. So here I'll try to show the basic MPI-driven deep learning first with data parallelism. Then, as you know, these days, the model sizes are increasing, data sizes are increasing. So that is leading to this issue of out-of-core DNN training. In that context, I'll introduce hybrid parallelism, data, which is combining data and model parallelism. I'll try to show an user case. We are working with some of the pathologists at the Ohio State universities. I'll try to show the results, how we have accelerated their pathology applications. And then I'll also try to show some examples how you can also accelerate the traditional machine learning applications, okay, using exactly the same approach as I've indicated earlier. So here, there are some initial results. This is at the distributed TensorFlow on pure CPU-based, okay, training. Of course, the CPU-based training doesn't give you the best performance, but many times you have access to very large clusters with CPU. So the question is, can you really take advantage of that? So this one, we did actually the study on the TAC Frontera system. So here you can see up to 2,000 nodes, you can actually get 260,000 images per second. On 2,000 nodes, we were able to train ResNet 50 in just 7 minutes, okay? So that means if you have very large systems, CPU systems available to you, you should be able to utilize it. So there are some more results. We are trying to compare MFP2 GDR versus the NICL, which is the NVIDIA's library. As many of you know, all these deep learning frameworks, actually at the bottom, they need the all reduce. Okay, so that is very important if you want to get the very good performance on the deep learning training. Your all reduce has to be done. And MPI libraries have been optimizing all reduce for many years. So the question is how we can even optimize further from the GPU side to get the best performance. So here it is like we are comparing this is on a DGX2 node. Here you can see like these are like a small to medium and medium to large messages, and uniformly we are able to give benefits compared to the NICL library. This study has been done in a similar manner on the Oak Ridge Summit, which is the #2 system. So here we are able to scale it to up to 1536 GPUs. And this was presented at ICS conference last year. You can take a more detailed look. So again, the same thing holds good here. Latency, we were able to give like a 1.6x benefit, bandwidth around 1.7x. And here, if you see the bandwidth as with increasing number of the GPUs, this red line that is our MFP2 GDR driven solution. You can try to see that we are steadily able to give better benefits compared to even other libraries like a Spectrum MPI, OpenMPI, or NICL. So those are at the all reduced level. So now if you take a look at the real training, so here let's say we did a distributed TensorFlow, the ResNet 50 training on the Summit with 1536 GPUs. Now you can see here we put ImageNet 1K that has 1.2 million images, and we were able to get almost like a 0.42 million images per second using ImageNet 1K, and we were able to totally do this training just in 4.5 minutes. Okay? So that shows the scalability aspect of our framework on this latest system. So then we did some more studies. These are the frameworks I indicated, like especially for PyTorch. There are different underlying system. You can go through the Harvard or you can go through Torch distributed. Microsoft has brought the DeepSpeed now. So we did a very thorough study comparing our MFP2 GDR driven solutions compared to the NICL solution. So here it is a NICL 2.7. And this is the MFP2 GDR. So as you can see, compared to NICL, almost we are giving 10,000 images per second faster than the NICL-based training in a unified manner, okay? Uniform manner across all these frameworks. So I'll strongly encourage you, if you are using any of these PyTorch, I'll encourage you to again download our MFP2 GDR and follow those steps, and you should be able to extract more performance from your training using our solution. So those are the basic deep learning solutions. So as I indicated earlier, now we are like the model sizes are continuously increasing. So if you take a look, like let's say this input image sizes, and then this is the memory of the available system. Let's say this is the Pascal GPU, Volta GPU, even the CPU. You take like a CPU Broadwell or CPU Skylake. Beyond certain sizes, these are the parts where data parallelism will not work. Okay? So we have to go to the next level, which is the model parallelism. Okay? So the model parallelism is a good concept, but then you need to orchestrate things properly because it introduces more additional communication and synchronization over it. Okay? So the question is how we can really take advantage of the model parallelism while also trying to take care of the reducing the communication overhead. So these are the results. We have introduced something called a HyPar flow, that is like a hybrid parallelism. We presented this paper at ISC conference last year. This is also available in the archives. I'll show some of the results from here. So this HyParFlow, again, we have a CPU-based solution, GPU-based solution. So here, these results are from TAC Frontera system. Here you can see we used up to 512 the Intel Xeon Cascade Lake nodes. And here we can see on 512 nodes, we're able to get almost 481x speed up. And the scaling efficiency also remains here like almost 98%, 93%. This was done with the ResNet 1001 image. Next, what we have done, we have actually now moved to the GPUs with hybrid parallelism. Okay, so the hybrid parallelism, if you take a look at it, like let's say you have forward pass and backward pass, when you distribute these into different nodes, many of these nodes don't remain busy all the time. Okay, so it has a lot of things dependent on like the batch sizes, whether all your memories and computes are being properly utilized or not. So when we did this first analysis, we saw that, yeah, look, this is if you just take like a one model replica, a lot of you have free memory and computation available. So the question is, can we try to utilize that? So we introduced these concepts of GEMS, GPU-enabled memory-aware model parallelism. It was presented at the supercomputing conference last year, and within that we had some basic scheme. Then we had a memory-aware synchronized training called MAST, and then the memory-aware synchronized training with enhanced replication, the master. So as you can see, like as we keep on increasing the number of GPUs, we went up to 1,000 GPUs. This is on the Livermore Lassen system, and here you can see like we are able to this green bar, higher is better. We are able to give very steady performance benefit. So here we see almost like a 97% efficiency on 1,000 node GPUs. So next, what we have done is, so these are the typical image processing applications. So now we are also going into the next kind of the BERT transformer models. These are being used quite a lot in the speech learning kind of thing. So this paper has been accepted. It will be presented again at the IPDPS conference just in another 2 weeks. So the same idea here, like let's say somebody has given you this multi-branch DNN architecture, how we can actually parallelize properly using parallelism. So here we have introduced a subgraph parallelism. Okay, that can be combined with the data parallelism. We call it D and SP. So if you take a look at these numbers, this work has been jointly done with Livermore team. So we call this as a super. So here, if you see the number of GPUs are increasing, like up to 1,000 GPUs. If you use the data parallelism, so it is like a time per mini batch. The lower it is better. So that is the standard data parallelism. And this is like a two-way, our subgraph parallelism combined with data parallelism, four-way, eight-way. So as you can see, compared to the pure data parallelism, we can actually get almost factor of 3x improvement, the speed up to accelerate transformer models here. So those are some of the standard benchmarks, but to show an use case to the real world, we have been working with a set of pathologists from our Ohio State University. As you know, many times when we go to the hospitals, they take our samples, blood samples, and then they try to, or some biopsies, the pathologists are able to look at the inside. So here they call it like a whole slide image. So these are very huge in size. Typically, these are 100,000 by 100,000 pixels. In the very old days, they used to do the glass slide and with a Microsoft. So now they are trying to change into digital. So here you can see like a tile at a 10x magnification level, tile at 20x magnification level. You can see a lot of patterns. So the question is, instead of a pathologist spending a lot of time, can actually deep learning be used? Okay? Because a typical hospital has so many slides being generated every day. Can we utilize our deep learning so that it can actually carry out some diagnosis based on the prior knowledge and the training? Okay? Because a pathologist, as you know, a senior pathologist who has seen millions of these slides can very quickly diagnose. But time is very important for that pathologist, and it's also very costly. So the question is, can deep learning be used to train thousands of slides, let the computer carry out the diagnosis, narrow down the diagnosis, and that helps a pathologist to make a final decision. Excuse me. So we are not talking here the machine taking the final decision. Still, the pathologist will take the final decision, but it will try to accelerate the process. So that will lead, if we can achieve this, it will lead to a significant benefits in reducing the diagnosis time, making pathologists very productive, and also reducing healthcare costs. So we worked with them. So it was a larger team. This is the paper we presented at Supercomputing 20 last year. So when we started working with them, so effectively what was happening in the beginning, it was taking them 32 hours on a single GPU. They were just running on a single GPU. It was taking 32 hours. So we worked with them, our model parallelism approach. And then we reduced using 4 GPUs, we reduced to 7.25 hours. That was our basic solution. Then we improved that with 6.28 hours, even to 4 hours. And then we tried to scale 32 nodes, 128 GPUs. We reduced to 0.46 hours. Okay? So overall, we are able to give them 15x reduction in the training time, and the throughput almost improved by a factor of 22. So in the beginning, since it was taking them for like even to do some basic training with a set of images, it was taking 32 hours. They were not very optimistic whether this field will be really applicable to them, because they have a lot of ideas. They want to introduce very complex models, but then that will take even much more time. But now I think since we have helped them in a significant reduction, so now they are actually moving into the next level of introducing complex models, and we'll be working with them to even to carry out this project further. So in future, I can share some of the results, what we are trying to get now. So those are the pure deep learning. Now you can think of like let's say the machine learning. A lot of people, the traditional machine learning, like clustering, those kind of applications, how we can also utilize in this framework. So here, what we have done, if you take a look at the QML application, so this NVIDIA has this QML libraries, CUDA libraries, they have the QML algorithms, they have the support for Nickel. So what we introduced here, the currently things are running with UCX. We introduced this MPI for Pi and then linked it with our MPIs to GDR module. Okay. So basically, you can think of our MPIs to GDR with MPI for Pi is now can work as a communication backend during the training phase. Again, these applications also have the similar requirements, like all these collectives, all reduce, broadcast. So we have made a release in February. If you are using any of these machine learning applications, I'll strongly encourage you to go here and download our library. This is again linked to our MPIs to GDR. It supports for all these different collectives. So let me show you some numbers here. These are like the k-means, nearest neighbor, truncated SPD, etc. As you can see, as you can increase the number of GPUs compared to the Nickel. So the Nickel is like these yellow lines. The red is the MPIs to GDR. This is the training time, and this is the speed up. So here you can see we can get like almost 1.6x speed up, 1.4x speed up. So this also work we presented at the MLHPC workshop last year in connection with SC. So if you are using any of these machine learning applications, you should be able to boost your performance using our library. So then the next phase, I want to show the similar things happening on the big data side. As you know, we have been having a HighBD or a high performance big data project running for many years. We had done earlier RDMA-aware Hadoop, Spark. I have presented some of these results even in the Lugano conference earlier. But now the field is moving. Many people are using this Dask, okay, the Dask architecture for the data science applications. So this is trying to show the overall architecture. So if you take a look at the Dask framework, which is being introduced in the community, so they have different support like a TCP support for regular cluster, UCX support for InfiniBand cluster. So we did similar kind of things here, MPI for Dask, linking with MPI for Pi, and then linking with our MPIs to GDR. So we have made 2 releases here. We made a release 0.1 in January, and then in the March, we have made a 0.2. Now we can actually support both CPU-based Dask as well as GPU-based Dask. Okay? So it doesn't matter where you are running, you should be able to run utilizing the native InfiniBand platform. So here I'll try to show some of the basic numbers. Here you can see this is like the benchmark one. Compared to the basic IP over IB, which is running over TCP IP versus UCX, look at our number, MPI for Dask. You can have significant benefits like a 3.47x benefit here, 6.92x benefit here. So this paper has been accepted to be presented at CC Grid again in few weeks. We also have an archive version, so please feel free to take a look. Here also the similarly benchmark 2. We have the benchmarks. You get also here 2.9x or 2.9 benefits kind of. So the broad idea, as I showed earlier, we are trying to design this converged middleware. Okay? So you may try to use your application either at an MPI application or a TensorFlow or a Dask. You can remain at your level, but through our optimized MPI library, we should be able to give you the performance benefit. So if you have a new system, just our middleware is good enough. You just download our MPI library with the appropriate modules, and that is good enough for all your users to extract the best performance and benefit from the underlying system. So these are on the on-premise system. Let me quickly finish thing with respect to cloud. So as you can see in the cloud, I'll try to show examples of AWS and Azure. Azure HPC systems, they have HPC instances purely on InfiniBand. Okay, so in fact, whatever our solutions, they will directly work with them. So we have been working with them. We have releases from our website, and Azure has also taken some of these releases and they have made available as their own images. So if you go, if you have an Azure account, you can directly utilize their images, or you can, some of the later releases, there is a little bit of delay. We make the release, they take it and then make it available as an image. So you can even directly download these versions from our site and use there. So here, for example, let's take an example of the WRF, which is a weather forecasting application. So here we are trying to show on the Azure with increasing number of processes, just MAPIS2 and our MAPIS2X. MAPIS2X has some advanced protocols. It also has the XPMM support. So as you can see, like it tries to deliver better performance and scalability as you try to increase the number of processes. So this is again, we are working with AWS. AWS is a little bit different. They don't use InfiniBand, but they have their own adapter called Elastic Fabric Adapter. But they have similar ideas. They have taken like the RDMA concepts, but their protocols, they have something, a newer protocol called SRD, Scalable Reliable Datagram. So we have an optimized version designed for them, is called MAPIS2X AWS. This is again available from our website. You should be, if you have an AWS account, you should be able to directly download our version and build. We have a user guide. You should be able to utilize. So here, I'm trying to show some numbers. These are, again, the same WRF application. We compared with OpenMPI, with Intel MPI, with our MAPIS2X AWS version. So as you can see, as you increase the number of processes, here we went the WRF with 1152 processes. MAPIS2X AWS actually gives the best benefit, even comparing to OpenMPI, Intel MPI. You are able to get the best performance with our design here. So these are some of the initial things. We are actually working with Oracle Cloud also now. In the next release, which is coming very soon, you will see a support for also the Oracle Cloud. So irrespective of whether you are utilizing on-premise system or cloud system, you should be able to utilize our MAPIS2 libraries. And as we are making progress on the research side, we also have a commercial spin-off. It's called XScale Solutions. So in fact, we are a sponsor of this event also. So we are trying to provide things to the community along two directions. One is a pure commercial support. For example, if anybody is trying to utilize our libraries, the large national laboratories and international supercomputing centers, we are trying to provide commercial support in terms of optimizations, application-specific optimization, tuning, platform-specific optimization and tuning, bug fixes, just like any other commercial software stack. So if any organization is interested in these, we'll be happy to work also from the XScale solution side. In addition, we are also introducing value-added products. Gradually, you will see more. This is one of the initial products. We have an XScale AI product. This is again based on the MAPIS2 GDR libraries, but the more things which is being added is called a integrated profiling and introspection support. We call it like a deep introspect. So the idea here is that if, let's say, you are running a TensorFlow with Horobot, with our MPI stack, or even with a Nickel library, many times you may see some performance. How do you explain? that whether you are getting the best performance or not. Where are the bottlenecks? So here, this tool actually provides a cross-stack performance analysis in a visual manner, like a visual dashboard. It exactly tells, okay, how many already uses are happening, what are the message size distribution, which particular message size is being choked. So all these things you can actually get through a visual dashboard, and that helps the end users as well as the middleware developer to very quickly find out the bottleneck. Without such a tool, you may try to do like many different experiments, footprint statements. It will take you several days. Here, within like 10-15 minutes, you can actually get your identify the issues. And we did some case studies, and we have seen like almost you can get like up to 20%, 30% benefits by spending very little time, and you can optimize your deep learning application. So this product is actually available. Some people are using currently. And if, and again, some of you are interested, we'll be very happy to talk on this. So with this, let me conclude the presentation here. As we take a look at the upcoming Exascale systems and cloud, they need to be designed with a holistic manner to take a look at HPC, big data, deep learning, machine learning, and DAS. And that's exactly what we are trying to do here, to design a convergent software stack. And I presented the solutions which will enable the community. When I say the community, is both HPC community, AI community, data science community. They can take advantage of our current and the next generation systems. Obviously, we will have some Exascale system very soon, and people have already started talking about Datascale systems. So we need to continuously have innovations to design this kind of converged software architecture so that the community can benefit. So with this, let me thank all our sponsors. As I indicated, these results I'm trying to show like are built over a period of 20 years. It's a lot of organizations have supported us with funding. I'd like to thank to them. But more importantly, these are all my heroes. So what I presented here today is like a work of 20 years from many past and students, staff, even current students and staff. So I'd like to provide credits to all of them. So with this, I'll close my talk here. These are all our pointers. I'll be very happy to take questions. You can post it in the chat. I'll be here, and we'll be able to answer. If anybody wants to do a live question also, if there is time, I can also answer. Thank you.
Thank you, DK. Yeah, just a reminder to everyone, you can ask questions via the Q&A window, and our presenters will answer them at the end of the presentation. And if they remain on, they can also answer anything that you come up with in the future. Currently, we do not have any questions in the queue, DK.
Okay, sure.
Brian, I have a question.
Yes,
I was just going to move it over to you, Hussein, to ask.
Thank you. So is it DK, is it possible to, or do you have available the KNN or nearest neighbor test that you showed? Is it possible to reproduce these somewhere else? I mean, if you have it available online, so we can.
Yeah. That it is available in the release. As I said, please feel free to download, or if you provide us access to any particular system, well, these are the results, right?
Yeah.
This is already available in this release. Please feel free to download and install. Yeah. We'll be very happy to work with you. You should be able to get exactly the same results.
Thank you.
Bum 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 bum.